Congress has passed laws that gave the president the ability to protect our national security. We need to make medicine in America. If you don't think that's national security, you're not thinking it through. We need to make semiconductors in America. We need steel and aluminum in America. We need to manufacture in America. If we just run gigantic trade deficits and sell our soul to the rest of the world, eventually we are going to be the worker for the rest of the world.
Guys, you have to understand this is so critical. We cannot rely on the rest of the world. We are supposed to be the greatest country in the world. And when you have to go hat in hand to other countries, say, can we please have some medicine? Can we please have some aluminum and steel to build stuff? You're not the world's greatest superpower anymore, or at least you're vulnerable. So when do we want to tackle this? Because we can keep waiting until we've attrited all of our industrial base, or we can start fighting again. Bring it back. Bring it home. All right, guys, good Monday to you. It is Holy Week. Got a lot to talk about. President today meeting with the president of El Salvador. He's in town. A lot to break down. So much went down over the weekend, as it always does. But the Sunday shows had a lot of great stuff. I mentioned it is Holy Week. The White House announcing that they are gearing up for what they're calling an extraordinary celebration for Holy Week ahead of Easter. On Monday, today, the president was expected to release a video. He's hosting an Easter dinner on Wednesday night, which is going to be, I don't know, we'll see what this looks like. But I think, this is going to have the Marine Band. There's going to be an opera singer. Prayers and remarks, Christian priest. They've got this Office of Faith in the White House, in the West Wing, led by Paula White. First time President Bush actually had a faith-based office, but it was across the street in an area they called Jackson Place, which is right off Lafayette Square. But President Trump put Paula White's office in the West Wing. And I can tell you from personal experience, there ain't a lot of real estate there. And generally speaking, that signifies importance. The National Security Advisor, the Vice President, Chief of Staff, the National Security, I think and the Press Secretary. Those are West Wing jobs. A lot of important people are across the street. And I only say that because it means a lot, I think, to realize how important President Trump emphasizes faith. And it's funny because a lot of people are, oh, he's not a very religious person. And I'm always amazed that, you want to judge somebody else's relationship with God. I mean, it's not really your place to, is it? And yet the left wants to talk about it. Also, I had Dennis Prager on the show, I don't know, months ago. And he talks so eloquently about how God uses certain people. If you go back in the Bible, you'll realize this, that some of the most imperfect people have been the vessels for God's work. And so before we judge, sometimes it's important to think about it in that light as well. But this is going to be, I think, a pretty amazing week. Caroline Leavitt also stressing that this is going to be in sharp contrast to Biden. And again, I'm not here to disparage or question his faith. That's between him and God. But I will say this. President Trump has made it very clear that he welcomes people of faith. He prioritizes them and wants to protect their ability to express themselves. And it's important. But as we kick off this most holy week, I was really disappointed. And I usually don't really care about Saturday Night Live. I don't watch it. I don't stay up that late, just to be honest. But I do see the clips the day after. And they kicked off what they call the cold open, the beginning of the show, mocking Easter and trying to make it funny and hit Donald Trump. Now, because of these copyright things that they go after people for, I'm not going to share the whole clip. I did post some on my social media if you want to see it. But I'll just show you some of the screenshots. It's disgusting. And I'm not they make fun of, in a very personal and mean way, President Trump and people on the right. I get that. But this was a step too far. It is mocking Jesus and Easter. And I got to be honest with you, if there wasn't enough of a reason not to watch it in the first place. But I want to take this a step further. If I'm at the White House this week, I'm going to ask people from NBC, do they agree with this? Because every time someone on the right says something, everyone has to answer for it, don't they? Well, why shouldn't people at NBC have to answer for this show? Do they agree that that was appropriate? What does Garrett Hake, the White House correspondent who loves to troll President Trump, what does he think? What does Kristen Welker think? But they're not going to get asked the same way everyone on the right has to account for every single thing that President Trump does. But maybe they should. Maybe they should have to answer for whether that's funny and acceptable. But it's funny because aside from the cold open, there was this other clip making fun of the popular show White Lotus. But instead of calling it White Lotus, they called it White POTUS. Get it? President of the United States, POTUS. That's his little acronym there. So they did this skit on White POTUS. And they had a fake Trump and a fake other people. And the funny part is there's an actress that's in White Lotus. I will admit that I have not seen this season, so I'm not entirely sure I can familiarize myself with all of these people or acknowledge them. But there's a star in the current season. Her name is Amy Lou Wood. And they mocked her. And she literally, there's a story that says the 31-year-old actress posted to her Instagram that she found the sketch comedy show's portrayal of her by Sarah Sherman, I'm not sure who, I assume that's a cast member, to be in poor taste. Amy Lou Wood, the British breakout star of The White Lotus season 3, said Saturday Night Live has apologized after unkindly parroting her during the show. In the pre-taped sketch dubbed The White POTUS, the NBC series spoofed Mike White's hit series, swapping characters from the Thailand set third season with President Donald Trump, his family members of his cabinet, Justin Austin Johnson, played by Trump, standing in for Jason Isaacs' Timothy Radcliffe character. But in any case, I think it's funny or sad that they apologized to this White Lotus actress for how they parodied her, but they're not apologizing to the millions of Christians that hold this week so sacred, because it is the most holy week of our religion. It's pathetic. That's who they are. It's not funny. I get jokes. I laugh at jokes. I make jokes. To quote Lloyd Benson during his debate with Dan Quayle, I know jokes. Jokes are a friend of mine. That's not funny. Saturday Live. Because it wasn't. And anyway, it's pathetic when these guys go that far and no one speaks out against it, because, you know, the folks at NBC, well, they're not going to say anything. And the rest of the folks in the media probably did think it was funny, albeit in poor taste. Anyway, I couldn't believe the show on Friday with the two authors, Amy Parnas and Jonathan Allen, on that book fight. The views from over the weekend, unbelievable. The stories, unbelievable. Obviously, read the book. That's what they want you to do. And as someone who has sold books for a living, I get it. But I'm telling you, if you know somebody that is a political junkie, send them the link to that show. Go to my YouTube, check it out. Or, on Apple, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and send them the audio version, depending on how people get it. But, I love political books. I was shocked by that. I still wonder how many people knew what they knew and didn't say anything. At least that was going through my mind the whole time. Anyway, over the weekend, the president went down to the UFC. So he's in Palm Beach. The UFC fight is in Miami. He flies down. Now, here's where I know everybody loved watching. I mean, I got a lot of positive feedback from people saying, oh my God, look at him at this UFC fight and all the people that are with him. But he flies back on Air Force One. It's 2:15 in the morning. Your host here, Sean, has been asleep for like 4 hours, maybe longer. And the guy's doing a press conference on Air Force One at 2:15 in the morning. Take a look.
Hello, Kai. Come on over here. Do you know the fake news? This is the fake news.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How are you guys? Good morning.
Good morning. We're just doing a little news conference. You want to partake?
I mean, I'll add to some stuff.
She's a great athlete, actually. Great golfer.
Yeah.
And great student, actually. So go ahead. Any other questions?
On Monday, you're having a meeting with the president of El Salvador.
Yes.
What do you want to achieve there? Do you have any concerns about that prison? People have said
No.
it has human rights abuses.
No, I think he's doing a fantastic job, and He's taking care of a lot of problems that we have that we really wouldn't be able to take care of from a cost standpoint. And he's been amazing. We have some very bad people in that prison, people that should have never been allowed into our country, people that murdered, drug dealers, some of the worst people on earth are in that prison. And he's able to do that.
Now, again, a couple things there. One, that's his granddaughter, Kai. She spoke at the Republican convention. Great, fantastic golfer, the daughter of his son, Don Jr. Amazing young woman there. Obviously, he's like, have you met the fake news? Here they are. It's 2:15 in the morning. I mean, literally, I got over the fact that he's having this dialogue about, tariffs and the president of El Salvador coming. The planes, by the way, you can hear the dings in the back. I love that about Air Force One. It doesn't matter. I mean, the plane could be landing. You could still be, this isn't a commercial jet. You stand up, walk around. But it was so funny just to see on a Saturday night. And remember during the Biden, they would call it's called a lid, which is, that's the way of telling the press, hey, there's no more public events. The president's not going to speak anymore. And they would call him at like 11:30 in the morning. I was reading the reports, the press reports, and it says President Trump at 2:47 a.m. called a lid. 2:47 a.m. I'm like, and then by the way, he got up the next day and the motorcade rolled to his golf course at like 8:00 a.m. I mean, unreal. I need 8 hours of sleep. This guy's, jumping out of Air Force One, getting in Mar-a-Lago, going to get back up a few hours later to go play golf. And by the way, he just had his physical and he's down like 20 pounds. He looks it. They released 3 pages of detailed records on his physical. Unbelievable. For all this talk, this is the contrast, by the way. I didn't need a physical, which I'm glad. I mean, it's 3 pages. I posted it to social media. If you want to go read it, check it out. But it's got all of his blood type and record, test results. But you watch that 2:15 a.m. press conference in Air Force One on a Saturday night, and you think to yourself, oh, for the last 4 years, we didn't know whether the president could make it up the small stairs. And if he was with it, yeah, we're back, baby. We're back. By the way, a little change in the White House decor was noted. The president hanging a picture of that assassination attempt where he's got his fist in the air and Secret Service agent Sean Curran is behind him. They put it in the White House hallway there. And Peter Baker of the New York Times tweets out, President do not hang portraits of themselves on the state floor of the White House, where decorous portraits of predecessors are displayed after they leave office. But today, Trump hung a pop art painting of himself at Butler in a heroic pose. Actually, Peter, let me put this in a way that your liberal self will get. They, them, did, because he hung it. And I know that they're all outraged because he moved a portrait of Obama. He moved it. Portraits move. But he's so offended. The New York Times is so offended that he put a portrait of himself in the residence of the White House. Get over yourself, they, them, because he did hang it up. So apparently presidents do hang things in the White House. New York Times, get used to it. A lot to break down on the tariff front, by the way. And then later this week, just before we get into it too far, Andrew Klavan's going to be here. I'm going to do this breakdown, by the way. I told you this, and we got way down the tariff rabbit hole because I thought it was critically important. But we're going to break down on Wednesday with former Senator Cory Gardner, who leads the Senate Leadership Fund, all of the states in play, and give you guys an insight like we did with Road to 270 about where we are with the Senate map. I'm excited about this. And, this to me is a great insight into the state of play. Because if the president doesn't keep the Senate, no more nominations get through. It's critical. House and Senate, but Senate is where all of these nominations and confirmations go through. So I'm going to walk through state by state by state where we are, and I'm excited about it. We're going to do it for the first time. I think I want to do it regularly like we did Road to 270. So I'm obviously going to be very excited what you guys think of this, but that is Wednesday. Then Klavan, we got a great panel. I mean, I'm excited as we head into the weekend. Before I get to this, I can't tell you again, one thing that we've talked about a lot over the show in the last 6 to 12 months is wellness. And I'm telling you, I have made sleep a priority. I just joked about President Trump getting like 4 hours of sleep. I need 7 to 8, but it's not just the time in bed. I have like all sorts of fitness trackers that watch, I look for how I do with sleep, whether it's good or not. But I have made sleep such a priority, and that's why I'm so excited to share with you guys that Beam's Dream Powder has made such a difference in my life. It's founded in America. It's run by people who share our values, hard work, integrity, and delivering results. It's a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend. It's got all of these key ingredients that improve sleep. You wake up feeling refreshed, ready to take on the day. It's made with this blend of many of the things that you probably have tried to take a pill for, like magnesium, reishi, magnesium, melatonin, apigen. I've tried all of those things before, but this was the cocoa cinnamon. I had last night the brownie one. I'm telling you, 30 minutes, I take it, put one little scoop in some water, microwave for 30 to 40 seconds, and this is unbelievable. It's already improved 17.5 million nights of sleep from people across the country, athletes, professionals, and right now Beam is giving you guys the ultimate Patriot discount of 40% off. 40% off any flavor, peppermint, cocoa, cinnamon, the brownie. There's so many, and they're all amazing. I've tried them. Go to shopbeam.com, use code /Spicer and use code Spicer. So shopbeam.com/Spicer, use code Spicer at checkout. That's for 40% off. This is a great American company. Invest in yourself and your sleep and your wellness by going to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code word Spicer. All right, I've talked about a lot of great guys. You guys have heard me. If you've been watching the show for a long time, you know about my buddy Leo Grillo. He rescued a Doberman years ago that was abandoned, named the dog Delta, which stands for dedication and everlasting love to animals. Then he went on to found Delta Rescue. And if you go to deltarescue.org, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about by watching the videos. This is the world's largest no-kill sanctuary. And Leo, as you guys have heard me say this before, if you've watched this, and I text with him, I talked to him on the phone the other day, he will tell you, Sean, it's not a shelter, it's a sanctuary, because they're not there to get these dogs rescued or find them a new home. They take care of the dogs, the cats, the horses, all sorts of animals. I'm telling you, when you go to deltarescue.org and watch the video, you'll know exactly what I'm thinking about. But they rely completely on donations from people like me and you. I've made a personal donation to Leo. And if you go look at deltarescue.org in those videos, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. If you're an animal lover of any kind, you'll know what I'm talking about and why you should do this. So you can also click on the estate planning kit when you're there and see if you have an old 401k, a stock, or something that will give you potentially a tax advantage. Now you'd have to talk with your estate or a tax professional, but it's a great way to help make this an enduring mission. So please go to deltarescue.org to learn more about all the great work that they do. All right, over the weekend, Bill Maher, you remember him, he has this weekend show, and he had gone to the White House to have dinner with President Trump at the invitation of Kid Rock. So Kid Rock, Dana White from the UFC, Bill Maher, all have dinner a couple weeks ago. And then Maher says, hey, I'm going to talk about it on my show. I'm going to break this down for you in a little bit because you got to hear this. But before I do that, obviously, I want to give you guys a little bit of what happened on the Sunday shows with respect to a lot of the issues, particularly tariffs. And so I want to kick this off with Howard Lutnick. And he's explaining what's going on with respect to some of these tariffs and how they're going to apply, because the media was saying that there were these pauses and whatever. So let me have Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, explain where we are in terms of tariffs and exemptions. Take a look.
The notice that went out Friday night saying that electronics, a wide range of electronics, including smartphones, including components used to make microchips, that these are now exempt from the reciprocal tariffs. Why that move?
Well, remember, those products are going to be part of the semiconductor sectoral tariffs, which are coming. So you're going to see this week there'll be a register in the Federal Registry. There'll be a notice put out. That is different types of work. So we're going to do that. We did that in autos. The president's going to do it for pharmaceuticals, and he's going to do it for semiconductors. So all those products are going to come under semiconductors, and they're going to have a special focused type of tariff to make sure that those products get reassured. We need to have semiconductors. We need to have chips, and we need to have flat panels. We need to have these things made in America. We can't be reliant on Southeast Asia.
Now, here's the thing that's interesting. The way that it was reported was, oh, semiconductors and smartphones are all exempt. And you heard Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, say, no, they're reclassifying. Now, I'll tell you this. And just so everyone, because I've seen some people say stuff. I went out literally Thursday and I was like, I needed a new iPhone. So everyone thinking, like, I shoot a lot of stuff, as you guys see on social media and for the show. And I was like, okay, I need one. I might as well get ahead of the tariffs. And then they put this pause on there. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was silly that I bought it that quick. But then I realized, hey, still a smart move. You got some time if that's what you're getting at. But I needed this. And sure enough, as Lutnick was saying, the media was trying to make the case that, oh, everything got exempt. No. That's not entirely what happened. They're just reclassifying these into another sectoral, which is electronics, and that will have its own set of tariffs. So if you go out and you wanted to get something ahead of them, still a smart move. But more than anything, and this is what I was glad he made the point on. If you guys have heard me before, you get this. This is not just about how much something costs or not. This is about getting things back made, because our defense industrial complex relies on that. If we have to outsource what we need, all the stuff, whether it's for national security or health emergencies, we're in a bad place. And he made a great point about why this is a national security issue back to the Commerce Secretary. Listen to him.
How concerned are you, and are you prepared to defend this in court? As you know, there's already at least one court challenge to the constitutionality of these tariffs.
The president knows the law. The president's general counsels know the law. They understand this, that Congress has passed laws that gave the president the ability to protect our national security. We need to make medicine in America. If you don't think that's national security, you're not thinking it through. We need to make semiconductors in America. We need steel and aluminum in America. We need to manufacture in America. If we just run gigantic trade deficits and sell our soul to the rest of the world, eventually we are going to be the worker for the rest of the world. We're going to be the thinker for the rest of the world, but they're going to manufacture. And if someday they say, gee, we're not sending it to you, we'll be nothing. So I think the president has national security in mind, and he's here to protect America. We need to reassure these things, and we all know it.
Now, you need to understand that I had a contractor come by the house this morning. And like a lot of people, he obviously knew who I was. And he said, so let me ask you, what do you think? And I said to him what I've said to you guys before. The easy answer is to do nothing. Most politicians love the easy answer, don't they? Do nothing. The hard stuff comes at a cost politically. And President Trump's willing to pay it in the short term. But guys, you have to understand this is so critical. We cannot rely on the rest of the world. We are supposed to be the greatest country in the world. And when you have to go hat in hand to other countries, say, could we please have some medicine? Can we please have some aluminum and steel to build stuff? You're not the world's greatest superpower anymore, or at least you're vulnerable. So when do we want to tackle this? Because we can keep waiting until we've attrited all of our industrial base, or we can start fighting again, bringing it back, bring it home, making policies that incentivize it to occur here. And I get it. Not everything's going to come back home, and not everything's going to be a U.S. job, but maybe there's some machine learning that can still build it here. A lot of cars, I get, and a lot of the industrial stuff that our Defense Department relies on maybe won't be built entirely by human. Maybe it's machine learning, human learning that allows it to happen, but it's still us building it here, manufacturing it here. That's the key thing to remember. We can't lose everything that matters to other countries and then be reliant on them and hope that in a time of emergency, they're willing to take care of us. No one wants that. You always want to protect yourself and prepare for yourself. Even if it's, having flashlights, you don't want to go, oh, I'm sure the neighbors have them. If the power goes out, someone will take care of me. No, you prepare for an emergency. You buy a first aid kit. We all do it in our daily lives. The president's willing to stand up for us, though, and that's what's important. But he also went on and talked about how the market access piece, and I love this about it. Take a listen to him talking about why it matters for our farmers.
Well, first of all, I think it's really important to realize that what President Trump is doing in his vision and his leadership is to completely realign the world economy, but in so doing put America first and therefore American farmers first. Shannon, for decades, the way that we have been treated in this country, and especially our farmers and ranchers, is absolutely stunning. We have been living under a tariff regime, but it has been the regime of other countries. You know, Japan with a 700% tariff on our rice, Brazil with an almost 20% tariff on our ethanol, which I know you were in Kansas probably talking to some ethanol corn farmers. The EU takes less pork with 450 million people than does Honduras with 10 million people. I mean, it is one thing after another. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize how egregious it was until I took this job. I mean, I've heard President Trump talk about it for a long time. I was in his last White House as his domestic policy chief, so I was somewhat aware. But once I took the job as agriculture secretary and really began to dig in, the way our ag producers are treated across this world, both with high tariffs and with non-tariff barriers like unsubstantiated science claims, is just, it's egregious. So the president is working to fix it. I don't know that any other political leader in our lifetime would have ever been able to do what he is doing.
So the point that I think that Brooke Rollins there, our ag secretary, is making is it's not just the tariff numbers. So they charge, more for our products to get in. So it's like if you make pork in the United or have pigs, or cattle in the United States and try to export them, they might have a 30 or 40% tariff. But the non-tariff barriers that she's talking about are equally as important. I've said this before, but half the time when you meet with like pig producers, they'll tell you that there are parts of the pig that we don't eat in America, but they'll eat in other places. But if they start to deny our ranchers and farmers access because they make up stuff, you have to wait at customs for 2 weeks. There's a bunch of GMO, genetically modified, organic type of things that keep them. Then those are non-tariff barriers. They don't actually allow you in, and we need to fight those equally as tough. But for so many people in America, that's a huge market that they can't get access to. And you heard her talk about there's small countries like Honduras that take more than the entire EU. That's because the non-tariff barriers prevent it. And I think it's important to understand. It's funny because it wasn't just her that made the case, but Peter Navarro actually made the same point. Take a listen to what he said.
So this is unfolding exactly like we thought it would in a dominant scenario. What's going on here is we start with the observation. I don't think you would disagree with me at all. The world cheats us. They've been cheating us for decades. They cheat us with tariffs, higher tariffs. But more importantly, they cheat us with the so-called non-tariff barriers. It's the VAT taxes, the dumping, the currency manipulation, the technical barriers that keep our autos out of Japan, the agricultural barriers that keep our pork out of Australia or Europe. They're doing that to the tune of $1.2 trillion of wealth a year that we transfer now abroad, and $18 trillion of wealth since we started running deficits. You know how much $18 trillion of America that could buy? So that's the problem we're grappling with. So we have a strategy here where the president says we're going to charge them what they charge us. And the analytical issue is it's easy to calculate the tariff differential, but the non-tariff barriers are so much higher. So that's what we set, knowing full well that a lot of countries would come right to us and want a bargain.
And that's what they're doing. That's what these countries are doing. You've heard over 75 countries saying, we're queuing up because we want to deal with you. We understand we've gotten away for a long time. And I talked about this with Kevin Hassett. I mean, think about it. For the longest time, our trade policy wasn't based off good business. It was based off soft power diplomacy. The rise of the Soviet Union, us saying, hey, we'll cut you a deal. We'll give you all this access to the U.S. market if you align with us against the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union fell, folks, decades ago. And yet we're still not getting treated fairly. So why not start to fight for it? And these countries have been getting a free ride for the longest time. And you guys all know this. I mean, think about it. The speed limit. You go down the road, no one ever enforced it. And suddenly there's a cop there like, whoa, what's going on? When did this happen? Or the friend that's taking you out to dinner forever suddenly moves away and you go, hey, now I got to pay for my own lunch. I get it. These countries have been taking advantage of us for years, and they think it's just fine. I don't blame them. President Trump says it's not their fault that they got a good deal. But at some point, the soft power rationale, because we were trying to use it as a cudgel to the Soviet Union, is gone. I mean, I can't believe we're doing this. And the other thing is, there was just a mindset of, hey, we'll allow China to enter the World Trade Organization. And when they become a member of the WTO, they'll see the light and everything will happen. That's been the mentality. You remember John Kerry saying, oh, they're going to totally recognize that the climate, if climate change is good for them. Are you kidding? They have such a bad track record when it comes to understanding how China motivates. And Kevin Hassett, who we just had on the show, was on over the weekend and explaining this. Take a listen.
These policies, which the president successfully enacted in the first term, are going to increase the demand for labor, increase wages, up by almost $6,500 in the first 3 years of the Trump administration. And so what it means is that even if you accept the naysayers' perspective on what might happen to the price of a cup of coffee, that the person walking into the coffee shop is going to have a lot more money. In the 15 years after China entered the WTO, real wages went down. So wages went down by more than prices, as we thought these cheap goods were going to revolutionize America. In fact, it was the opposite. Welfare went down. We had Angus Deaton write a whole book about the deaths of despair that were related to this. And so I think we're very optimistic about the fact that people are going to have more money in their pockets and that they're going to have a higher standard of living.
So, look, I'm the first one to admit I got a D in economics, okay? But I do recognize that you can't look at one thing in isolation. And the fact of the matter is, since China joined the World Trade Organization, as Kevin Hassett put out, yes, oh, wow, they're sending us cheap stuff. So in theory, you should buy more stuff. But they're driving down the cost of wages because they're paying someone like 50 cents to work all day. We're charging minimum wage here. It's like $17 in a lot of states, $20. So what happens is labor costs get driven way down. They're depressed. So in theory, when you look at the big picture, you're actually not able to buy as much. Your purchasing power doesn't go as far. Yeah, you're getting cheap goods, but you're not making as much as you could wage-wise because they're driving the cost of that down too. No one wants to talk about that. But the bottom line, and this is the bottom line, and Navarro alluded to this. By the way, I was over at the White House on Friday. I got to see Peter, chat with him. I talked with Pete Hegseth, chat with him for a little while, chat with Tulsi, put a bunch of the stuff on my Instagram if you want to see. It was a fun day. I mean, literally, some days you bump into everybody. Got to hang out with Seb Gorka. I'll mention that, I think, in a minute. And his team, they just come off a great rescue. I digress. The bottom line, and Peter Navarro, we had a chance to chat about this a little on Friday. But he made the point about what is the end goal. And the end goal is to get these other countries to come to us and to queue up and say, hey, okay, we get it. We've gotten a free ride for a long time. But the U.S. Trade Representative, Jamison Greer, addressed that this weekend as well. Let me just show you that.
I'm considering that we have 90 days. Before April 2nd, we were already having many talks with other countries because everyone knew tariffs were coming. This was not some secret. Everyone knew. And so we already were in conversations with several countries. It's going to be up to these countries to come to the table, continue coming to the table, and make these kinds of offers. The reality is we're working around the clock, day and night, sharing paper, receiving offers, and giving feedback to these countries with respect to how they can better achieve reciprocal trade with the United States.
But 90 days could be a rolling deadline, is what I hear you saying.
Well, I would not say that. In the president's cabinet meeting last week, he was asked about this, and he said, well, we'll see. I mean, my goal is to get meaningful deals before 90 days, and I think we're going to be there with several countries in the next few weeks.
By the way, you got 75 lined up. There's 170 trading partners that we have. I mean, think about that. What if he gets 50? That's still 50 better than we've ever had. 20! Heck, 2! And we know for a fact, like South Korea, Vietnam, Israel are all lined up, publicly. And I think the EU has shown a willingness to deal as well. But had he not done anything, nothing would have happened. And it was funny because I read this the other day to Kevin Hassett when we had him on the show. But just remember what President Trump told Kevin Hassett. And I want to read this to you again because the media is like, I don't know where this strategy is coming from and I don't know what his goal is. Listen to President Trump himself and what he told Kevin Hassett. He said this: if I was having trouble closing a real estate deal, I would sue the guy if he didn't give me what I wanted. A threat would have had no effect. So just saying, I'm going to sue you, no effect. Everybody can just say that. But this is him again. But if I sued him the day before closing and then offered to withdraw the lawsuit as part of the deal, they almost always sign. They knew you meant it. That's what President Trump told Kevin Hassett in the first term. And he's doing it again. Just saying, everyone goes, well, why couldn't we have just negotiated for a few minutes and not had to go to do all this extreme stuff? Because no one will do anything. It's the same thing that he said in real estate. Just saying it isn't going to do it. When you slap the tariffs on, they freak out. Everybody wants to say, oh, if President Trump had just done what we've always done in the past, just say that you're potentially going to do it. You not think other leaders haven't tried that and nothing happens? Trump's a totally different animal and they get it. The Chinese, the Russians, the North Koreans, they don't know what to do with the guy. He's unpredictable when it comes to national security. And it's the same thing with trade. They worry, so they come to the table, say, let's make a deal. It works. You may not, or your cousin or your uncle may say, oh, can't we just do without this? Sure, and get nothing. There's a rationale to all of this. He uses it to get what he wants, and when he say he, it's on behalf of us. We win. Our country wins. Look at all of the investment that we've talked about. Almost $1 trillion. SoftBank, Apple, Honda, Hyundai, Taiwan Semiconductors. I've said this week after week. It doesn't just happen. Leadership matters. Tactics matter. But here's the bigger political thing about this. The Dems love to talk about, oh, this is reckless and this is what's happening. But when President Obama talked about tariffs, the Dems were behind him. Listen to President Obama talk about tariffs. Take a look.
The argument is, number one, that's the biggest market in the world. Number two is those countries are already selling to us. I keep on pointing out there are a lot of Japanese cars here in the United States, almost no U.S. cars in Tokyo. Number three is that if we don't write the rules, China will write the rules out in that region. We will be shut out. American businesses, American agriculture, that will mean a loss of U.S. jobs.
Oh, so when Obama says it, it's different, right? I show you that for a very good reason, because the media won't. When Obama did it, it was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. But by the way, when Obama said it, it was decades after Trump first said it. The clips are rolling around now from him on Oprah, various other shows, talking about getting ripped off from Japan and other Asian countries. Trump's been on this since the 80s. No one had a problem with it then, did they? It's just funny. It's just, tells them, oh, well, what about when Obama said it or did it? Well, that's different because it wasn't Trump. Anyway, a lot about trade, but there's also so much more going on. Pete Hegseth, I mentioned I had a chance to catch up with him a little on Friday, but he's been getting a lot of stuff done for our national security. And one of the things President Trump initially said was that he wanted to reassert control of the Panama Canal. Pete Hegseth making a ton of progress on that front. Taking a listen to what he has to say on what they're doing down there.
Well, President Trump said in his State of the Union address, China has too much influence over the Panama Canal and America's going to take it back. And that's exactly what I was charged to do, what we're continuing to do. Chinese influence cannot control our own backyard, especially a critical waterway, key terrain like the Panama Canal. You mentioned 40% of ships are U.S. ships. 75% are going to or from a port. So we were able to secure two historic agreements, one with the Panama Canal Authority, that our ships, our military vessels and auxiliary vessels will travel first and free through that Panama Canal. And then we also signed a memorandum of understanding with the defense secretary over there and the president that established a robust and growing U.S. presence, right? You need to secure that key terrain. So Fort Sherman will reopen jointly with the Panamanians, a jungle school, and we're going to have a larger U.S. presence at the invitation of Panama, working with them to keep the communist Chinese out. If we can't use that waterway in a key contingency, then China has an advantage. Other presidents have allowed us, we've been sort of asleep at the wheel. President Trump has said we need to be serious about our own backyard. That includes a place like the Panama Canal. And I want to thank President Molino a pro-Trump, pro-America president of Panama who's sticking his neck out against communists whose influence was real there, Maria. We could see it. You could feel it. The communist Chinese want to control politicians. They're building infrastructure projects. They want to surveil. They want to take that canal. President Trump says, not on our watch, and we're fighting back.
Do you understand that, though? Nobody was talking about this issue. The Panama Canal, where did this come from? Had President Trump not brought up the Panama Canal, it wouldn't have been an issue. And you heard Secretary Hegseth there. We are now first and free. Our ships go through first. We kind of cut the line, and they go through free. The Chinese want to control it. It's a choke point. It is a critical choke point. You can't get from one ocean to the other without going through all of South America and around at the bottom. This still doesn't get the attention it deserves. What a huge win for us. And it blows my mind sometimes because these issues that President Trump is championing, and everyone said, oh, why is he going after Panama? Because it's critical to our national and economic security. Commercial ships, military ships, they can't get through if China controls both sides. Our military presence down there will be huge. And I commend Secretary Hegseth for what he has accomplished on President Trump's leadership and foresight. But trust me, no one else even mentioned this. Have you heard anyone talk about the Panama Canal and its strategic importance? No. But he's also not just done there. Secretary Hegseth is also dealing with Iran. Take a look.
We've had direct talks yesterday. They began in the past. It's been indirect talks with a mediator. But there's Steve Witkoff meeting with the foreign minister of Iran. What can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that President Trump is dead serious on this issue. He's dead serious that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He's said that for 20 years. He's been consistent. That is clear. He's dead serious that he wants it done at the negotiating table. He wants it done peacefully. Yeah. And that's why he's going straight to these talks. He set that deadline. These were productive talks yesterday. I don't want to get ahead of our skis. Steve Witkoff does a fantastic job, but it was a good step, and they're going to go at it again on Saturday. But he's also dead serious that if we can't figure this out at the negotiating table, then there are other options, to include my department, to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear bomb. We hope we never get there. We really do, Maria. But what we're doing with the Houthis and what we're doing in the region, we've shown a capability to go far, to go deep, and to go big. And again, we don't want to do that. But if we have to, we will, to prevent the nuclear bomb in Iran's hands.
Unbelievable. Again, another issue. I mean, think about this. Nuclear weapons in the hands of Iran. And here we are addressing it. The Biden administration, the Obama administration gave them pallets of money. Just remind yourself, when the Iranians chant death to Israel, which you hear all the time, you know what else they're chanting? Death to America. Do you really think these guys want a deal? Do you? I don't. And the Biden administration and the Obama administration before it thought, hey, maybe if we give them pallets of cash, that they'll stop trying to acquire a nuclear weapon. Oh my gosh. That explains a lot about their mentality and how they approached our national security. But between the Panama Canal and Iran and so many other things, it's just amazing what's getting done. All right. This brings me to the other thing I wanted to address with you guys. Over the weekend, Bill Maher played a clip, or he played several, and I put the whole thing on my social media, but I only have time for like a 1-minute clip that came towards the end of what Maher said in this 13-minute clip. And I want to play that for you because it's worth watching the whole 12-minute clip. Okay, don't get me wrong, but there's only so much I can play. The bottom line is this. Maher's been very critical. And I was actually critical of Kid Rock bringing Maher because I don't know why he's trying to win one person over. But I get it now, to some degree. This is Maher telling him at the end how comfortable he felt around him. Play a clip of that.
Does Trump want respect? Of course. Who doesn't? My friend said to me, what are you going to wear to the White House? I said, I don't know, but I'm not going to dress like Zelensky, I'll tell you that. But, okay. Just for starters, he laughs. I'd never seen him laugh in public. But he does, including it himself. And it's not fake. Believe me, as a comedian of 40 years, I know a fake laugh when I hear it. And I thank you for them. But, okay, example. In the Oval Office, he was showing me the portraits of presidents, and he pointed to Reagan and said, in all seriousness, you know, the best thing about him, his hair. I said, well, there was also that whole bringing down communism thing.
All right. The bottom line is what I've been saying for a long time. Trump one-on-one, you can't beat it. There's a reason he wants to meet all these dictators, and the media will never get that. Putin, Kim Jong-un, Xi. Because one-on-one in a room with President Trump, he wins every time. He knows that. He's funny, endearing, gracious. And Maher found that out this weekend. There's one point at the end of his clip where he says, you know, I voted for Obama, I voted for Hillary, I could have never had the conversation with them that I had with him. That's important to understand. Trump one-on-one, there's nothing else like it. And that's what most of the world will never have the ability to fully see. And that's where the media continues to get him wrong. And I'm glad that Bill Maher had that opportunity, even though I was a skeptic at the beginning, because he came out telling people to a very wide audience why it's not what he thinks. So I would encourage you to go watch the entire thing. I put it up on social media, on Instagram. I put it on my Twitter or X. You can go watch the full 13 minutes, and it's worth it because it dispels the myth that so many people have of President Trump, and it's something that I've always tried to tell people that it's just not true. Anyway, we've got a great rest of the week headed your way. A big discussion on the border tomorrow. Andrew Klavan's here later in the week, and then, as I mentioned, we're going to go through that Senate map in a way that nobody else will. Very similar to Road to 270. Thanks for kicking off your week with us. Go to SeanSpicer.com. Sign up for the free newsletter. And by the way, I mentioned later this month I'm walking to help find a cure for pancreatic cancer. Lost my father to that. If you can go to pancan.SeanSpicer.com and sign up to either you can come join us or just make a donation. I appreciate it. Trying to raise a few $1,000s for them. Appreciate that. Again, sign up for the newsletter, SeanSpicer.com. Thanks for starting your week with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.